And we are now live.
This is Senate Appropriations Committee, and we're taking testimony on the FY22 budget, and we're taking testimony on the Dale section of the budget. I see we have Commissioner Hutt, and with her, Bill Kelly and Megan Tierney Ward. Is that your group, Monica, or is there someone else that I'm not seeing?
You're missing Sarah Clark. She's here as well.
Oh, well, Sarah's always with us. Sarah is here to make sure that you're giving the right testimony, Commissioner.
That's why I didn't identify her as part of my team, because she's the oversight.
He doesn't mean that.
I don't mean that. I rely on Sarah.
Well, I can always fill in for Sarah if in a pinch. Not that I could fill it, I could try to fill in. Yeah. So why don't we get started with the Dale section of the budget? I assume, Commissioner, you have a document that you want us to screen share?
I do. So, Madam Chair, good afternoon and hello, everybody. I was going to ask you quickly if you, so there's a whole budget testimony document, which has a lot of narrative in it. I believe the committee's already received that. Typically, you prefer me to go straight to the numbers.
Yes, we have not changed at all. And we like that one-page summary that you put together by program. So
simple, and puts it into that easily followed narrative that or easily followed structure that maps to the ups and downs, which is really helpful. So I'm on my other screen. I'm just getting to that section so that I don't dizzy you while I scroll down quickly. And as soon as I get there, I will screen share.
Great. I know we could fall victim to vertigo sometimes with.
I know. I hate to have when people are doing that in front of me. It makes me very dizzy. So let me share my screen. Are you seeing that document?
Yes, we're seeing the document. It's
great. Great. Okay, so let me walk you through, and Megan and Bill and Sarah are all here to make sure that we can answer whatever questions you have, or if I speak incorrectly or misspeak, they will correct me. But this section of our budget testimony does map to the ups and downs with a couple of combinations of numbers that I'll talk to you about so that you can toggle back and forth if you need to. But so just starting in terms of the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living, this first face sheet just gives a quick summary of everything. And it's my favorite document because it's kind of a cheat sheet for the whole department. So in terms of our proposed budget for FY22, it's $542 million, as you see. And just for your information, that represents an increase in general fund of 1.28%. So a pretty nominal increase overall. And in our total funds, it's an increase of 1.95. And then you just see the breakdown for general fund and global commitment. As this committee well knows, our budget in Dale is driven very much by Medicaid in our two largest divisions, the Division for Developmental Services and the Adult Services Division with the Choices for Care program. So the pressure there in GC and Medicaid will be reflected in the rest of the budget. But again, this sheet just gives you a breakdown of all of the 5 divisions and how it maps out across general fund, global commitment, and any pure federal funds. So let me.
So committee, this is just, I realize Philip and Senator Balance not on, but global commitment actually includes a blend of federal Medicaid dollars and state dollars. So global commitment is a blend, and it is it's really it comes through the Agency of Human Services central office, and then where it's appropriated at that level, and then it's appropriated out to the individual departments that are eligible to get funded under this federal waiver program. So global commitment, underneath it is a blend of federal, state, and it's Medicaid and its Medicaid waiver that's being reflected here and the two developmental disabilities and adult services are where you really, where you see most of the global commitment. But that's just a little background, and that's reflective of the waiver that Vermont has.
So the word global is meant just to talk about all the existing.
Yeah, the name of the waiver is called Global Commitment. And the other part, which you won't see here, is that under the waiver, Vermont is allowed to use Medicaid dollars for services that would otherwise not be reimbursable under Medicaid. And those are what we call investments. And so last I knew, and Stephanie I could get out the sheet, but I think we have over $100 million of services that we use Medicaid dollars to help fund that would not be eligible for Medicaid funding without the waiver. So this waiver has tremendous benefit to the state as it relates to the flexibility of using Medicaid dollars for a much broader, more universal range of health-related services.
It is about 120 or 30 million that
Yeah.
we have investments.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So, so you can see a big chunk when you're looking at the fund split. It looks like general fund is separate, but within GC is embedded general fund as well. The match is in the GC, which is state match. It's combo. It's a combination. So when we do the budget, you will see we have a line that says unduplicated to back out the double counting of that global commitment. But that's getting into a detail that we don't need to pursue today, but I just wanted to explain the global commitment column. Okay. I'll let you keep going, Monica. Sorry to
That's okay.
stop you.
I'm always awed by what you know, and so I love to listen. And honestly, I'm not even sure I need to be here. You could probably walk everybody through this.
Except they're sick of listening to me talk, so it's great.
It's very fun, and I love that you could do that. Thank you. So again, this section of the document really maps to the ups and downs, so it makes it a little bit easier to see what we're doing. The very first line is just the overall gross dollars change. So as Senator Kitchell said, it's all of our gross dollars. So general fund and Medicaid here, the overall change from 21 to 22 is 10.419487 million. And then the rest of the document really just maps directly to our appropriation. So I'll just walk through appropriation by appropriation. And again, you could see this on the ups and downs if you wanted to watch there. The first appropriation is the administration appropriation. And unlike other departments, all of our salaries and all of our fringe are part of this appropriation. So you see the change, the net increase there is that 566,472, and that includes all of the ups and the downs in the appropriations in that administrative appropriation. So salaries and fringe. Additionally, you would find the HR costs, IT costs, feed for space, the vision costs, all of those internal service fund transfers, costs that are directed to us from the administration in terms of what the costs are for the fiscal year. So those all net and combine to that 566,472. Our positions have stayed very stable at Dale. I think that there's an increase of just 3 this year, and all 3 of those are limited service and attributed to specific federal grants that we received.
Oh, that's the grant we just approved at Joint Fiscal to really see if we can get more. Vermont has a very high percentage of relatively young individuals with of disabilities who are outside the workforce. We have a large percentage relative to many other states. So I think it's that grant that you're referring to see if we can help that group of relatively young Vermonters, which would be in prime workforce years, get into the labor force.
That's the Kessler Foundation. Yeah, I think that is one of the most recent ones. We also had a grant in APS this year, which is exciting new work. So yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the next appropriation is the Aging and Adult Services Grants appropriation. And just as a very quick reminder, I know this committee knows this well, but in that appropriation, you'll find our area agencies on aging, the Attendant Services Program, which we've talked about a lot, the SASH grant, the Home Share grant, and a portion of the funding for the adult day programs, the day health rehab, are all part of this appropriation. And there's just two items here. The first is, there's a 2-year newly negotiated 2-year agreement with the collective bargaining agreement with the union that represents the independent support workers. So those workers that are hired by a family or by an individual to provide care to somebody in the community. And that cuts across multiple programs. So you're going to see this collective bargaining agreement, the CBA costs represented in multiple appropriations through the budget as it pertains to this full fiscal year. So the first, I'm sorry.
Well, I do have a question, Monica. Obviously, we've got this group of workers represented by a union, and they're negotiating an increase. If we have designated agencies or SSAs who are funding staff doing a similar function, are we creating wage disparity? Because we're obviously, as the union is negotiating, we're adding more money to increase those salaries, but we've been flatlining the SSAs and the DAs. And I'm just wondering how, whether we've created the perverse situation where you're better off under this independent working arrangement and getting paid through ERAS as opposed to working for an agency. Do you have a sense of whether there's a disparity there?
It's a great question. What I will say is that the rate that's negotiated for the independent support workers is still significantly less than what's paid at a staffing level at the DAs. And as you will recall, in fiscal year 18 and in 19, there were some adjustments made because there was an increase for the designated agencies to bring base salaries up to, I want to say it's 15. I might be wrong.
It was 14, and I think then we got it up to 15. Yeah.
So certainly there has been attention paid to that rate for designated agency staff. And that's the base rate. And then it will go up from there. And that is still significantly higher than what was negotiated by the union for the independent support workers.
All right, thank you.
Sure. And then the second item in that appropriation is the adult day backfill. Again, you will remember that in the FY21 restated budget, I'm trying to get my fiscal years accurate. In the restated budget, we reduced funding for adult days and replaced it with CRF funds, with those coronavirus relief funds. So this just replaces that back into our base funding for FY22. The next appropriation is the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and there are no changes proposed in that appropriation for FY22. Same for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, no changes proposed in 22. Then we get to the Developmental Services appropriation. So a few items to talk about here. The first two items represent the full caseload pressure in developmental services. As we talked about, this is one of our larger Medicaid programs. This is the pressure created by new individuals coming into the system or individuals in the system that have a change in need and need additional funding in order to support enhanced services and service delivery. So the two budget items, the 6.230426 and 1104090 together are about 7.3 million in terms of caseload pressure in developmental services. The next item down is
Can we just look at that a little bit?
Sure.
So
absolutely.
on the 248 caseload, you're expecting So that the 15, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. You've already got your base caseload. You're budgeting for 15 additional individuals.
In the
Am I
public,
reading? Am
in
I
the
reading
public-
that?
yep, in the public safety or the Act 248 caseload. So the developmental services, we break into two distinct items. One is the normal developmental services caseload.
Right.
And then there's this side for folks with public safety issues or individuals who are committed to my care and custody as the commissioner under Act 248, which is essentially civil commitment. So we hold that caseload a little bit separately and monitor it, manage it a little bit separately so that we can pay close attention to the needs in that population.
Yeah, it's
So-
very
Question.
expensive, but I just want to make sure we're talking about 15 more individuals that you're budgeting for. I just,
Correct.
I have a
okay,
question,
Senator
Madam Chair.
Sears.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Senator Sears.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my hand.
I can see it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay, my question's on the public safety specifically, but may involve others. Do you use sheriff's transports at all? And if so, what is the rate and what is the yearly budget for those transports?
We don't use sheriff transports and don't have a contract for that specifically.
Okay, do you ever? You don't.
No, not
Good chance.
typically. I mean, it certainly has happened on occasion, Senator, but it's more a one-off than it is a specific intervention or support or a means of transportation.
All right.
okay.
Thank you. So there is no line item, there is no expense.
No.
Okay, any other question? See the yellow hand.
Well, I
is
have other
down.
questions. I do have some other questions, but it was earlier on.
Oh,
Oh, I can go
Specific-
backwards, sorry.
we
No.
can go back, Dick.
Okay, on the independent living, aging, adult service grants, so forth. What is available to, within the agency or department? What's available to families that don't yet qualify for Medicaid?
Families,
Well, with you've got, we do a lot of things for people that need to qualify, but have to qualify for Medicaid and keep, in terms of keeping them out of nursing homes, et cetera.
oh, okay,
But
okay.
what is available to families to try to keep their loved ones out of nursing homes or whatever? But they don't, they're not Medicaid eligible.
Yep.
Do we wait until they're Medicaid eligible before we can give them help? That's, I guess, my question.
So, so a couple of different big buckets. If you're thinking about older Vermonters, so Vermonters who might have or might be sort of working towards nursing home level of care needs, but are not yet at that place, or might have those needs and not qualify for Medicaid. The
Yep.
Older Americans Act exists, right, and works through our area agencies on aging, which is exactly what this appropriation speaks to. So that Older Americans Act is available to anybody who is 60 or older. And you can get case management, information and referral through the area agencies on aging. We've got some dementia respite grants that are administered through the area agencies on aging as well. So a family doesn't need to be Medicaid eligible to qualify for that grant to enable them to hire some support to bring folks into the home. So I think that primarily in the Older Americans Act and through some of those specific grants to the area agencies on aging, we support older Vermonters.
They seem, that
Also, go
my
ahead.
experience is not, my recent experience, here, most of the questions were, was I Medicaid eligible?
Yeah, the other program that we
And
have.
that, let me tell you, even, and I understand as a member of this committee, and I fully understand what's happening here, but it's frustrating.
Well,
So, and
historically,
I don't feel that my, I'll leave it there. But I'm pleased to know that there are programs that are available for Vermonters who don't need to spend down their assets in order to be eligible for service.
The other program I would just mention under the Choices for Care umbrella is the Moderate Needs Group, right? That program, Moderate Needs, is meant to be for individuals who are not Medicaid eligible, also individuals who are Medicaid eligible, but it's a kind of a homemaking, a little bit of personal care services. But I don't disagree with you, Senator, that Medicaid eligibility becomes critical when you're looking at extensive long-term care needs, that are going to be, the rest of your life. It's a pricey need, and it's a challenging thing for families to sustain. I really don't disagree with you at all.
Well, I think that if I might just, I might say that we have developed a system that if you live long enough, you'll be on Medicaid state assistance, unless you're a multi-millionaire. And that is extremely sad. And yet I didn't, I'm going to recontact my area office on aging, because that's not the response I got from them.
The other thing is that there certainly are differences, and I don't have them in my head well enough to be able to do a decent job of testifying in front of you right now. But there are certainly differences between traditional Medicaid and long-term care Medicaid, which is designed to be a little bit more accommodating of assets and spousal income. So there are slightly different standards for long-term care Medicaid eligibility than there are for pure Medicaid eligibility. And it's important to know those because it is designed essentially to avoid that pure spend down that we talk about in some of our other Medicaid programs.
Yep.
But it is, there is no doubt that it is a challenging, it's challenging.
so Monica, on that front, I know if you go into a nursing home, there's a spousal, to not pauperize basically the community spouse. And I think it was 100,000 or that vicinity of assets that are protected. But under Choices for Care, when the care is not institutional based, but at the same level as nursing homes, does that spousal resource protection apply as well?
I would have to look into it, and maybe what we can do is research that and get back to you. It's certainly the long-term care Medicaid versus just traditional Medicaid in Choices for Care, and that does offer some spousal protections. And there are ways to also look at the assets of the individual or the income of the individual and not engage the spouse in that. But it's more complicated than I can hold in my head.
Yeah, well, I know it's complicated, and I know that we did establish for long-term care a much higher, than for regular Medicaid assistance to give the community spouse the resources so we don't make them ultimately dependent. But I was just wondering if that only applied in the nursing home setting, facility-based, or extended over to as we're trying to support more and more people in their own homes and in the communities.
I'll find out. We'll find out and get that information back to you. I guess the only other thing I would add is that I know that not a lot of Vermonters, I don't know what the percentage is, but there certainly are some Vermonters who have purchased private long-term care insurance, and that's another means of support if your care needs become intensive as you age. But I don't know that there's not a high uptake in Vermont of that kind of insurance. And I know it's been a conversation and a question that the legislature has taken up a couple different times, just thinking it through.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, there's no question that historically the burden of care has fallen to family members. So even with some some help, there's still, and I know from experience because we've had 3 family members who were cared for and were able to live at home until and they died at home. But it really does put a tremendous burden on families to carry that level of care, or the financial cost of hiring for care is very substantial. So it's a very serious issue for families that are encountering it. So, but
Absolutely.
if you could get us a little bit more information, particularly on those questions, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. We're happy to do that.
Okay. I don't see any other yellow hands at this point, so we could go back to where we had you.
Monica,
Yes.
just commenting on Senator Kitchell's question about the public safety and the 15 new, you could split that 50-50 between new cases and existing increases in existing needs for existing consumers.
Thank you, Bill. That's all I was asking, whether that 15 was now the new total or was the incremental growth. So you've answered it. Thank
Great.
you.
And that's true in both the regular caseload and public safety, where it's a split between new and existing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I think I was on item 3 in the developmental services appropriation, which is again that collective bargaining agreement. This is the portion of those workers that are attributed to developmental services, so hired by individuals or hired by their families to provide care. The next item down is just it's cost neutral. It's just a technical adjustment between the Department of Mental Health and Dale. So again, cost neutral to the agency, and it's a shift just to cover a contract that we hold with Disability Rights Vermont. And then the last thing is a reduction, that 154,890. There is a workers' comp policy that we are required to maintain for those independent support workers. There was a reduction in the cost for that workers' compensation policy. And so that's what you see there is just that reduction. And those are numbers that are given to us by finance and management to apply to the program. In the traumatic brain injury program or the brain injury program, there's a small utilization increase that we're asking for. As you well know, this is a program where it's very difficult to predict any kind of a trend because it's based on those individuals that have some sort of a brain injury. And so we're always trying to modify this and budget it carefully and closely, but we are seeing some need for additional dollars in this program. And so this is just a small utilization increase, probably would cover about 3 new people within the program.
So it's really a caseload increase as opposed to utilization of existing.
Yes, it is caseload increase. You're absolutely right, Senator.
Okay. Any questions? I don't see any yellow hands, so we'll keep going.
And the next appropriation.
Oh, wait a minute. Alice has got her hand up.
Is there a number of persons who are in that program that you could give us?
Oh, yeah, the traumatic brain injury program in the last fiscal year.
There's 77.
There were 77 active, but we served a total of 90 people.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
It tends to be pretty expensive because just oftentimes the nature of these injuries.
There's and that's it's an acute rehab program, right? So just as a reminder for folks, if there's longer term needs, typically we will try to shift that individual into the Choices for Care program. So this is really about their rehab, which is exactly why, as Senator Kitchell alluded to, it's a little bit more of an expensive program. And then finally, we're just in the Choices for Care appropriation. A couple of items here. So the first number, that 1094845, actually is a summation of 3 different numbers. So I'm just going to walk you through those. it represents the inflationary increase, the nursing rebase, which we were required to do every 2 years, and this is the year for it, and then a decrease in the bed days utilization. So just to give you those three numbers, so again, you can map it to the ups and downs that you probably have in front of you. The inflationary increase for nursing homes in 22, as given to us by the Division of Rate Setting, was 3,115,564. And the nursing rebase for all their clinical nursing services in nursing homes, again, statutorily required in the numbers given to us by the Division of Rate Setting, is 2,159,269. And then the decrease in the bed day utilization, that number was 6,369,678. So those three numbers together net to this reduction of 1094845. So three
Monica-
different items.
Monica, are there some nursing homes that are having trouble? You know, you have to have a very, a 90% occupancy rate. And I know that we've had a number of nursing homes where they've had to get extraordinary financial relief. Can you just speak to sort of the health? I know the whole focus is on the community side, but if you could speak to the nursing home facilities relative to their financial situation.
Sure, I'm
you're
happy to do that.
experiencing it.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I mean, it has been a weird year. Let's be honest. It's unprecedented for all of us. As you alluded to, Senator Kitchell, the requirement for nursing homes to benefit from the inflationary increase, there are a couple of different levers and a couple of different boxes that they need to check. One of those boxes is they need to run at 90% occupancy. And candidly, most of our nursing homes haven't run at 90% occupancy for many years. The success of the Choices for Care program and bringing people into community means that it really, that there aren't bodies to be putting into those beds. So it is a successful shift to community, but it has put our nursing home industry in a somewhat precarious situation. So we have been, looking at that and examining that. And I know there are several reports that you all have received and read through at different points in time that talk about that case rate mix and how that rate is established for nursing homes. Through the pandemic, needless to say, those census numbers dropped even more. So I think that if you look at the average, most of our nursing homes, some are higher and some are a tiny bit lower, but most of the nursing homes are running at about 70 or 75% occupancy. House Appropriations asked the question really specifically about the financial health of the nursing homes. And I know that DEVA was producing some data for them to really speak to, how many showed a profit, how many showed a loss, and some of the nuances that might have contributed to that, to those profits and losses. So I'm happy to, once DEVA puts that together, share that same information with this committee so that you can look at it. I think that overall, I would say that the industry is sort of hanging on and waiting to see what happens, because at a federal level, the way that case rates are going to be determined, this case rate mix that we talk about, which is based on an acuity and how you determine the rate for individuals that are placed in nursing homes, there's a huge federal change happening right now in terms of what will factor into those case rate mixes. And so I think most of our nursing homes are sort of hanging on to see what that looks like before making some decisions about taking beds offline, reducing their overall occupancy. But it's a private industry. And so there's a symbiotic relationship with us as the state and as the legislature. But they are private entities. And so they do make their own decisions about going on or reducing beds or closing. We haven't seen any nursing homes closing through this pandemic, which is interesting. And certainly they have been, both nursing homes and our residential care facilities have been extraordinary in the work that they've done to keep folks safe through the pandemic.
Alice, you have a question?
So I'm just wondering about, obviously they can't be, is it not a state requirement that during the pandemic that they keep a certain number of beds available in case some of their patients get COVID? I mean, I can think of a nursing home near me where they have a whole wing that they have kept empty, even though they'd like to have people there, but they've kept it empty in the event that anybody gets COVID so they could be isolated. Is that,
So it was a recommendation. It was not a requirement. It's not something that we could have required of them. But certainly when you look at infection prevention and control procedures and practices, that's best practices to be able to have an isolation unit. But no, nobody was required to do that.
but indeed doing what was recommended meant they have much less occupancy if the whole wing is being saved for COVID patients.
You mean
Yes.
it would affect their occupancy of
Yeah,
licensed beds?
yeah, tremendously. Yeah.
Mhm.
There was also a real limited patient movement through this whole pandemic. As you can imagine, it was hard to, although there are really strict quarantine requirements to bring somebody in, admissions just slowed pretty significantly through the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna, you haven't got too much further, right?
No, just the last three items there.
Okay,
So number 2 is a carry forward in the Choices for Care program. We're anticipating that carry forward at the end of 21. Want to make sure that we can carry it forward into 22. That's pretty simple. I'm looking to see if I have any more notes on that. In terms of the third item down, that's the caseload pressure for the Choices for Care program, that $4 million, representing an increase in need. And that really is truly looking at new folks and potentially some shifts in their need, but primarily new. And then finally, the collective bargaining agreement, once again, in the Choices for Care program, funding it for a full fiscal year in 22.
okay. Other questions? I don't see any yellow hands. So I want to go back to the IDDS in terms of that caseload and reimbursement. I know that you're in the process of redoing the whole payment structure. Can you, and you gave us a report recently about, but I must admit, Monica, this committee, we are the recipients of recipient of over 150 reports. So I must say, I don't expect everybody has had a chance to read all of them, but you did have a report that was a sort of a progress report on your efforts to really deal with the conflict of interest when the assessor is the provider of care, to how to get consistency of assessment, and then ultimately how to get to a different payment methodology. And last year there was a lot of concern. We heard from agencies and they were concerned about the process and how cases that individuals with extraordinary needs, could be recognized or accommodated. Could you just give us a little update on how you see that effort going to date?
Sure, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. So candidly, just to frame the rest of the conversation, we certainly had to take a little bit of a pause on the payment reform work because it requires a tremendous amount of work and effort from the department, but also on behalf of our community providers to really ramp up what needed to be ramped up in terms of data and shifting their systems and information. And there was simply no way to ask that of them in the midst of this pandemic. So there's been a fairly long pause on the payment reform efforts, although we are starting back up. And Senator, you spoke to some of the key elements. There are core foundational elements that need to be in place before we can.
Well, Monica, I read the report. And the reason I read the report is I stuffed them all in a bag while I waited for my husband to get a scan at Dartmouth Hitchcock. So it provided an opportunity, and it was just fortunate that your report was one of the, I don't know, hundreds that we received that got read. So that's why it's so fresh on my mind. It isn't because anything other than just serendipitous that
No, that's great. We're happy to be top of your pile for sure. So a couple of things that have to be put in place for payment reform. We need to have the ability to set standard rates that are clean and clear and consistent across the state, which means that we need to know what's being factored into a rate, you know, and how that's equitable across the system in order to really establish a foundation for changing the structure that we use to pay. So there was a rate study that happened and a methodology that was being put in place. And that's part of the work that we had to pause, because to finalize the rate study, although that work got done, to actually attribute that rate study and that methodology to each of the services that are delivered and making that consistent from agency to agency, that was a body of work that we need to engage with the providers with. And they were just a little bit busy this last year, and it didn't work as well as it could have. So the rate structure is a critical piece of that work. We also need to move towards this independent assessment, which you also referenced, Senator Kitchell. We had made that decision that there needs to be a clean and clear needs assessment conducted for each individual that's coming into the system that's handled and conducted consistently from the top of the state to the bottom of the state. What happens right now is that there's a needs assessment process that we use that was homegrown. We developed it here in Vermont when I was still working at the Howard Center in Community Services. Each agency uses it themselves. And so what we realized was that in order to formulate a really strong payment reform and a payment methodology, we need there to be a consistent utilization of a needs assessment so that everybody's getting the same kind of experience and we can track those needs that are identified to services that we deliver. So there's been a little bit of a pause on that, although we are slowly moving forward with we have an RFP, and actually I think we have, I'll ask Megan to weigh in. I think that we've identified a needs assessment tool that we're going to use through an RFP process. And now the work will be done to implement that across the state. So we'll have a rate methodology in place, we'll have a standardized needs assessment, and from there we can build the payment reform work. And that has just literally started very slowly back up, bringing providers back to the table to talk about that, but recognizing that we need to still acknowledge that the pandemic isn't over and they've got to still focus on care and safety of individuals. So that work, we had hoped to have the methodology and the assessments in place starting in January. And additionally to all of that, the agencies inputting data into this, oh shoot, Megan, what's the term?
It's encounter data.
Encounter data. I always forget that word. I've forgotten it 4 times this week already. But for providers to be inputting the data, encounter data about services that they deliver. So rates and needs assessment and clean data about service delivery are the 3 foundational pieces to payment reform. And we've just started back up, slowly working on that, and hope that that process will be in place in January. I hope that you will hear less resistance from providers about that. I think that we've finally gotten to a place that's a little bit more comfortable around it, and we are certainly working with them to move forward. There are a couple of pieces of payment reform, as an example, moving to a monthly billing that we've been able to utilize even in the middle of the pandemic. And we made that leap to try to make things easier for providers through this whole time. But I think we're moving slowly back towards it, Senator, is the bottom line.
Monica, I would just add for you, you mentioned the assessment, that you're correct. The assessment tool has been chosen, and the good thing about it is it's evidence-based, and so it is a standardized tool. The other good thing is we're working with a contractor who's helping us identify additional assessment questions that could be used to identify maybe special, more complex situations, and how would that link to a payment that's specific for that person.
Great, thank you, Megan. That was the other part of the
You're welcome.
Sort of that outlier population.
Exactly.
One of the, just for the members of the committee, but it is no surprise to those of us from the agency, and that is where a request has been made of the Vermont Care Partners, which would include the IDDS, or which would be the specialized service agencies, as well as the designated agencies that provide both IDDS services and mental health services, to meet with committee chairs and leadership, because neither the mental health budget or the Dale budget provides, in order to come in with their budget targets, there's no increase in reimbursement for services. And that reimbursement is what makes a difference whether staff get raises or not. So this is obviously an area of service delivery that where the governors recommend is, just like in so many areas, if it's either not increased or a decrease, there is usually some kind of response to that. And in this area, that this is, I'm sure the commissioners are well aware that this request has been made, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of the committee, because what we're dealing with here are really two programs that tie back to our old legacy systems, and one is mental health and move to community care and reducing obviously the state hospital population, and then the IDDS ties directly back to the closure of Brandon. So those are populations that are now being served in the community through these community organizations, and that's why we're going to be obviously hearing more about what was funded and what was not funded here. So I'm not surprising you at all, am I, Commissioner?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay, other questions of the committee? I don't see any yellow hands. It looks like the sun might be out where Senator Baruth is.
It's out in Troy.
Huh. Well,
The weather, I'm gonna give you a weather forecast from Bennington.
oh,
43 and sunny, 43.
You're
oh
kidding.
my
I'm
God.
about to put on my shorts and go out, jump in the pool.
Did he say 43? 40?
Wow.
43.
You gonna play golf?
Amazing.
No, there's too much snow and I only have white golf balls. I don't have any yellow.
You could spray paint them. So Senator Westman, glad you're here.
I will just be circling back around to go through this again. I'm sorry to make you do it twice.
Not a problem at all.
You could fill in the blanks, I'm sure, Senator Westman, pretty easily. So other questions of the folks from Dale? If not, our next group, I think, is Diva. Is that right?
That is correct. Diva at 2:30.
Okay, and they're probably not in the waiting room yet.
We have with us already Commissioner Gustafson, and I think one more. Who else is in from Diva? Oh, Megan Tierney Ward. They're
No,
here with us now.
Megan is here from Dale.
Lisa Schilling's on too.
She was already
Senator
here. You're right.
Uh-huh.
Correct. Lisa's here.
Okay, well, if we are finished with Dale, I'm sure they'd be happy to be freed and can go back and continue to do their work. Congratulations, Monica, on your new position.
Thank you.
Should be,
When do you move, Monica?
The 15th.
The 15th. Oh, I'll get a hold of you before then.
she'll probably say her dance card is full.
I'll certainly come back and talk it through.
Okay, I'm going to suggest then we keep moving to Diva, and then because we want to get our budget adjustment run through done today and voted out. So as long as we've got them in the waiting room, I think we can say adieu to our folks from Dale. I
Thank
guess
you so
Sarah will
much.
stay on.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Corey, it seems like he was just here yesterday.
I think it was a couple days ago.
But we never, but Sarah's with us all the time.
Oh, I know,
So-
She's smart.
Yeah, she wants to make sure everybody's testimony is right
Yeah.
within, those, no wandering, no
Yeah.
wandering.
That's exactly right. Right.
Senator
Who's on?
Kitchell,
Who's on? There's Corey. I got to be there for that one.
Yeah, Senator Ballant.
Oh, I was just I know all the squares keep shuffling around, and on my screen, I'm right above Sarah, and now I understand why sometimes people mix us
Oh.
up.
Yes.
Same haircut, same
Yes.
mannerisms. I
Very
never noticed
similar.
it before.
I can see why. Okay, so we're moving on to Diva, which is such a small budget. And we have the commissioner here, and you said Lisa's, must be on one of my squares on the next screen. Anyone else from your shop, Corey?
No, just the two of us today.
Okay, all right, and then we have Sarah. So why don't we just have you get right into your highlights of your budget?
Yeah.
We were sent your report, the book that you do every year.
Yep.
And if there's anything you want to know about the program, it's really, there's just tremendous amount of information in that book. I don't know whether it
So
must take
I-
quite a bit of time to update it every year, but it's,
Yeah, it does,
it's
but
really a
it's
treasure trove.
It's also getting easier every year. I mean, I think this book has been around for a long time, but we did a pretty significant update to it and reorganization of it about 4 years ago. I think I'm not going to go through it all. When I'm in when I'm in House Appropriations or House Healthcare, they usually schedule for a couple hours, and I'll go through different elements of accomplishment. And this year we went through the COVID response. But when we get to Senate appropes, I like to have just get to the nitty gritty of it. And Senator Kitchell, if you don't mind, we'll just get right into the administration, do the program, and the sort of ups and downs of it, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think so. We tend to want to take a little higher look simply because of our time constraints.
Yeah.
And that section of the budget is mine, so you may
Right.
hear from me. Well, you always hear from me.
Yeah, I always appreciate it.
Yeah, I bet.
So I have the book in front of me, and that's where I'm going from. It's page 71 of the book. If you have the book, I'm not positive that everybody would have it.
Well, if you
Do we want to pull it up on the screen, or how would you rather?
if you think it would work to put it up on the screen, Chrissy, can you get us to page 71?
I can. I'll get you to page 71 and then I will share the screen.
Yeah, so we don't have to
Great.
watch.
Exactly.
Christy, you're going to want to go to 72. Just start at 72.
70.
When you do the find in the page.
Okay.
We did get a overview from Sarah yesterday. You know, we know that it's nice. The FMAP rate is going up a bit.
Yeah, that's the big picture, and it's going to feel maybe very simple in terms of what we talk about here compared to the amount of money that's in the budget overall. But yeah, FMAP is a big help to us. I'll talk about it more, but caseload will continue in FY22 to be an issue to the extent that we will look for more money to make sure we have enough in terms of paying for the care of the caseload that we will have. I don't know if I mentioned it when I was in on BAA, but we had an increase in caseload and utilization that we were accounting for in BAA, and that was because caseload was up, but utilization wasn't really up. We're actually projecting right now that when we go into 2022, which is this budget, we will be seeing caseload decline, but utilization go up. So I think I've been in so many committees talking about this that I'm not sure I mentioned this to you guys already, but I'll say it again. As of the big picture item is that we do anticipate caseloads to drop as you know, as the, you know, at some point in FY22, we will start redeterminations again. We are not doing them as part of the 6.2 FMAP bump. When caseloads drop and the pandemic subsides, we actually expect utilization to grow. And so in the current year, we've got one going up and one kind of being depressed a little bit, and the other, and then in the next year, which is this budget, we expect the sort of them to change. And the net result is that they kind of look the same. You know, a half-year budget adjustment was you know, I think we were looking for $8 million more, and in the next year, a full year, we're looking. You can see it on the screen there. I think that the net out is $20 million gross in program increase, but caseload and utilization is 16 million gross.
Yeah, we know that you aren't doing eligibility reviews under that federal provision. So you've got a lot of accretions and not many deletions.
Yeah, we normally transition off or due to redeterminations. We have about 1,500 people a month come off the program. That's not happening right now. So there's only an indoor, no outdoor. And so we, of course, are going to have more people in the program.
So shall we just keep going down through this?
Okay. We'll start. We'll start at the gray bar of administration. So number 1, salary and fringe changes, increases there. I will say you know, it says DIVA consists of 375 employees. That's positions. You know, there's been a 11-month, 10-month hiring freeze on that. It's been very, you know, the agency administration have held that ability to rehire kind of tight so that we're not spending money we don't have. But that means we have a fair amount of vacancy savings, I would call it, by not hiring. The other piece in terms of employees is just when that 6.2 FMAP bump ends, we will be obligated to begin that redetermination process. And by not doing redeterminations, we are creating a backlog of redeterminations that will need to happen. And so I don't know that we can throw more employees at it, but we can probably be prepared for it by having what we would believe to be a full complement of individuals ready to do that work. It isn't extremely simple. The system has, as you probably well know, manual processes involved, and so you can't just jump in and press buttons. You have to really understand how it all fits together. So something that, you know, for DIVA, we have done things to respond to the pandemic, but I think that for the senators here, you should be aware that when the pandemic ends and that FMAP bump ends, I think the DIVA will really be in a position to do a lot more work than we're seeing right now. With not doing redeterminations, there isn't a lot for people to call us about. So our calls volumes are down a little bit, and so on. So just sort of putting that in your.
So your staff, your eligibility staff are really. Is that
it's going to be critical that we're going to be well staffed and trained before we get to the point of redetermination. So just something that I'm thinking about. When I see employees, I can't help but mention that the future is going to be, it's going to be a lot of work in front of DIVA.
Okay. Well, we understand that, and obviously you have to have really a schedule for how you get caught up on redeterminations, because you can't do them all in this, get them all caught up in 1 month.
Well, right, and the piece is just I think the critical piece is what the federal government expects us to do.
Yeah.
The federal government can say you need to have done in 3 months, and that might be possible for some states, but it's unlikely that we would be able to achieve that. We need more time. So we're talking to the federal government about that now. The new administration evolving, and so we'll continue those conversations. The next item here is one-time savings restored. When we did the, I don't know what the common term for the budget we did last September is, but we had asked, knowing that we were in a bit of a crunch, we'd asked all of our vendors that have big contracts with us. We have a lot of contracts at Diva that with our bigger vendors, we asked for them to contribute whatever, not knowing exactly what we would need or what the economic situation would be. We asked all of our vendors, and one of them was Gainwell Technologies, which used to be PNC, which used to be AP. They keep changing their name or get, you know, subsumed by other entities. They stepped up and allowed us to save 125,000 in this budget, state dollars. This is just a restoration of that money. It was supposed to be short term anyway.
So Gainwell is not your new, is that your, the MMIS
Yeah,
contract?
that's MMIS. It's the
So they
same
gave you-
entity, the same system. It's the, you know, the, what do you call it? Their legal name, and they've broken off and they've combined and.
Well, it's been sold so many times.
Exactly.
125,000, my goodness. And what is the value of that contract?
Yeah,
Millions.
it's high. Yeah, no, I understand. But they were one of the only ones that actually came forward. And by the time we had asked everyone, we realized that we weren't in the same situation. And you know, this is just, I mean, I guess I'm thankful that they did something. So.
Okay.
The third is internal sales.
Yeah,
fund
we
changes.
understand all that.
Yeah. So then to the next page. Okay.
This is your
Yeah, I was just trying to
ADS
skip
service.
ADS service level agreements. So we pay ADS for services. That the amount that we're going to give them in our service level agreements is going up. In our budget, I think ADS bills us for in the neighborhood of $19 million for support and services, or flow through ADS. They actually, I think they manage one of our contracts, our IE&E Optum contract falls to them, and about $8.5 million. But, you know, this may or may not seem like a lot. I think it's good to have the context of the amount of money that's going through us to ADS. The last one is, you can read it here, discontinuation of EHR incentive payment. This is a 10-year-old program. The HITECH Act of 2009 made dollars available to providers for their electronic health records. It was 100% pass-through. Viva just facilitated that program. It's set to here at the end of calendar year 21. Most providers have taken advantage of it that are willing and ready to do so. I believe this is off the top of my head, but I think it's in the neighborhood of $52 million have gone out through this program, but it's been in our budget that this money is there. It's all federal dollars. As you can see, there's no state impact, but it's going away. So it has to come out of our budget. And This is the action of that.
Well, we won't discuss meaningful use and what got funded. So let's move on to 6.
Okay. I've already discussed this one to some extent, but these are the actual numbers in caseload and utilization. As I said, we anticipate caseload dropping at some point in 2022 fiscal year. And utilization, we anticipate rebounding. And I feel like I talked to you all about this before. I was in finance yesterday and talked to them about it. Chris asked about it. But we anticipate that there is utilization right now for 2 reasons. One is we're in a pandemic and people aren't going out and probably staying away from the hospital and provider environments.
So Corey,
go ahead. Yep.
Could you you said you were in Senate Finance yesterday?
Yes.
On Medicaid.
Home health provider tax.
I was going to say, okay, because that's that's a perennial issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sunset on it that is, it's like there was the tax. I mean, it's going to probably get to you at some point. The tax was reevaluated between 2016 and 2017. And you're right, it's been on the docket. I mean, the VAs of Vermont and and Biata came together, made some contributions to that process, and a methodology was established, and which services and so on. So that was in 2017. 2019, the sunset was continued, and it's up again at the end of this fiscal year, 2021, for renewal. It is in the miscellaneous tax bill, and the administration is proposing that we continue it. So it was in Ways and Means today, so it may come to you. But if it doesn't continue, then that would create about a $5 million change in the budget of state funds for you to deal with. So that is an issue in front of the.
Well, we have a range of providers, but then home health seems to be the one where there's the hardest, the one where the rate and the tax and who's paying and who's getting back has been ongoing. So, all right. Yep. I was just wondering, so it's to deal with the sunset. All right. Well, I'm sorry to get you off number 6. We can go back. So obviously this is big because the caseload is with all the different beneficiary groups is a very significant number of people get some form of healthcare assistance.
Yeah, and our thought on the caseload to the growth, not only is it partly the growth is because no one is coming off of Medicaid right now, but it is, in all likelihood, it is eligibility through economic calculations that put someone in a position to be eligible for Medicaid now. That group that kind of can come in and on and off of Medicaid, you generally are healthier than the categorical groups, and so that can contribute to that lower utilization. But we definitely think when it gets to this budget and next year, there will be and the pandemic, vaccination, distribution is either much full, let's call it fully implemented. There will be people there's some deferred care out there. That's our situation right now. This is going to be ongoing. I imagine that this calculation is the final. There'll be a BAA next year, of course, and there'll be consensus forecasting after the end of the session. I think members of this committee will be involved in.
Mm-hmm. And we just approved the caseload consensus forecast caseload at the last e-board meeting a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and
so
this takes that into account. So
yeah,
it's the most up to date we have for projecting. So let's go to the next page then. Again, we talked about this number 7. I'm on the SMI SUD waivers. We talked about this in the BAA. This is just a continuation of putting dollars into these under these SMI SUD waivers for expenditures related to IMDs as we continue to do our phase down that we're obligated to as part of our current 1115 waiver. It's not going to get us all the way there. So that's why we are going to be bringing forward in our 1115 negotiation to CMS here at the end of this year, a conversation about IMD. We talked about this. I remember you giving your thoughts on it, Senator. I'll move on.
And committee, IMDs are institution of mental disease, and under the federal Medicaid rules, if you have an IMD that has more than 16 beds, I think it's more than, not 16 or more, but with whatever 16 beds, they're not eligible for Medicaid coverage. And under our waiver, we had been getting Medicaid match, and now they're changing it back. So this is related to the special rules that are attached to IMD, and this would be the psychiatric hospital, and I guess probably Brattleboro Retreat.
Yeah, the Retreat, the psychiatric hospital, and actually Lundholm fits into that category as well.
Mm-hmm.
So number 8 is FMAP changes, and Let me take a second here. So this is anticipation that when the FMAP changes, when the increased FMAP goes away, we're going to have to replace those dollars in the clawback. So I think we fumbled around on this one last time, or maybe that was in another committee, but this is the opposite of what we talked about last time, where we would have dollars available to us because of the 6.2 bump. This is replacing, I think at a half-year rate, the loss of the 6.2 FMAP bump. So
this restores the base, but we'll still have the 2 more quarters of the higher federal receipts.
Yeah, do you want to chime in on that? Because I feel like I always say it wrong. I understand it in my brain, but the words don't come out. Do you have any clarification about, because what Senator Kitchell's getting at?
Did you ask me, Corey? I think you did. And the only thing we talked a little bit about
Lisa,
this.
but you're just as good.
Oh,
let's go.
No, whoever you asked.
So Senator Kitchell is right. This is backfilling the base reduction that we had in 2021. And yes.
And it generates those federal receipts that would still continue to flow, then are available for other budgetary purposes. Because we're restoring the base.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, but they're still available. All right. This is getting into the arcane nature of Medicaid. And I'm just checking to see if anybody has got any questions or might have slipped off into oblivion here. Okay, we'll keep going.
We've gotten to the end. So
Oh.
that, like I said, there's a lot of dollars flowing through the DIVA budget, but there isn't a ton in terms of changes that we are proposing in this budget. Just the big one is obviously accounting for some kind of unknowables in caseload and utilization, and it's overused now, but unprecedented times.
Okay, other questions of Corey or Lisa or Sarah for today? If not, or if you think of some, well, you can let me know. And it's a big part of the budget, but this year it's pretty quiet on the Medicaid front. So I think probably the most work that has been having to be managed, and that is those CRF payments that had to go out to the all the different provider groups, and then the hazard pay for the healthcare related workforce. And I know that that's really put additional work on a lot of places. So Medicaid has been sort of the old business, but there's just been a tremendous amount of additional work to process, set up the methodology for the payments and to process. So do want to recognize all that work that you've undertaken.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'll pass that on to the team, because it has been all hands on deck in different areas. I as you bring those up, I just will say that it's something you're well aware of. The challenge of changing guidance continues and has continued, and so unfortunately, we're in our efforts to help. If rules change, that we've seen that, and it really bothers me. But it feels to me like there might be even more changes to come, and probably in a positive way. I know Sarah's probably mentioned, I don't know if you've been testifying today, Sarah, about the FEMA changes that just came out today is pretty I think good news, and rippling through both DIVA or both AHS and the rest of the state government and other states. I was on a national call earlier today, and there was talk about that as well. So I would expect more change to come. And the tough part is we set up these programs, and then the rules change, and then we have to go back and say, hey guys, this changed. And It isn't fun, but we did definitely jump to assist early on, and I appreciate you saying that. I'll really share that with
Okay.
people,
Well,
not just at DIVA, but AHS.
Yeah, well, we know, and certainly the first round of hazard pay and then all the provider stabilization grants that got processed and the methodology to set that up and to determine the amount of payment. I know that your folks did a lot of work to make that happen, and it was everybody and staff. Somebody was talking about a UI and a VR counselor in Rutland was helping to answer the calls for the Department of Labor. It just shows you how people were pulled from every part of government to respond. So it has been a lot of work in a very short period of time, and we appreciate that. So I'm going to suggest then it's 2:49. We're almost. But how late were we supposed to hold you here and torment you, Corey?
2:50.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest then we move back to budget adjustment and let you folks get back to your other work. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay. So we have our budget adjustment, and there are a couple of things that, and then we can just do a quick run through.
Yep.
And the first is related to the Vermont State Colleges, and we have some revised language because the administration had not reverted all that money that we had allocated. And so there was a combination of 3.6 in the budget adjustment and then language as money became available, the remainder up to 5 million. And as a result of some of the CRF not being reverted, it's still available. And therefore we had to factor that in and change some figures. So if Stephanie, you want to put that up, we can start with that first.
Why don't we can start with that first. Why don't we, Chrissy, put up the document that has the page numbers on it. It's the version of the bill, and we'll go right to section 47A.
Okay, there it is. So Stephanie, do you want to just run through what we're
Sure.
why we're doing this?
So section 47A was in the House bill. It appropriated 3.6 of general fund. We have changed that back to Corona Relief Fund. That was what you see at the top of page 21. But what we're adding is a new B, which is contingent. If additional CRF is available, then there's another $800,000 that would be appropriated to the state colleges from CRF. And we're also adding section 47B, which is what the chair was just speaking of. There's about $640,000 that was scheduled to be reverted in December, but the reversion actually did not get executed. And so those dollars are available to the state college as long as we amend the date, because the date was through December 30th, 2020, and we are changing the date to December 31st, 2021. And so the combination of 3.6 of actual CRF, $800,000 contingently made available that will very likely be there, and then the 640 gives just a little over $5 million to the state colleges for CRF, in CRF for pandemic expenses, which are over and above and unrelated to the restructuring.
Senator Baruth, you're muted.
I might have missed it, but if you could scroll up just a bit again. So I'm confused. So there's 3.6,
yeah,
and then 0.8.
And then the unreverted amount of 640.
So the dollar amount's not listed here, but in section
so frustrating not to be able to control the screen. Where is the other?
So the new section you would be adding is this section 47B, and it's not stated, but there's $640,000 that was going to be reverted in December. And if we change the date, as we're doing here in section 47B, we're pushing it out a year.
Yeah,
That the amendment does. That means that the state college can go ahead and spend that $640,000. So
Okay.
it's 640 plus 800 plus 3.6 that get you
Got
a
it.
little over 5 million.
And the House version had the 3.6 in general fund, but Stephanie advised us over a week ago that Adam felt that they would be able to find the CRF and not have to use general fund. And in fact, that turned out to be the case. So we're using CRF Corona Relief Funds really for all of it and not getting any using general fund. So that's what this does. But the 640 that we thought that we found out didn't get reverted, then is there to be used toward the 5 million of identified COVID costs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I probably got you out of sync, Stephanie. But
we can just quickly start at the beginning of this document and walk through.
Yeah, we should.
Okay. And we could maybe just make it a little bit bigger for folks to read it. Not quite that big, I guess. There. So this is the bill as put, with the number section in front of it. And there's only a handful of number sections that we changed, but section 3, which is actually an open section from yesterday about the use of force training. Section 3, as it's drafted here, has the use of force training in it. And that is just confirming that the committee is going forward with including that $402,000.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And
section
Senator Sears did follow up, and I have had a follow up with the chair explaining that we respect the date that was in the legislation. The department said they can meet that date if they had this funding, and if people want to change that date, then fine, but we're not relitigating a date change in the budget adjustment. So in light of the circumstances, and so we are moving forward, and that was the recommendation and consensus of the committee to put the training in for public safety, money for public safety.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Section 4 is where the small amount of money is added back. You can see the $15,000 there for liquor controls, purchase of body cameras.
Okay.
And section 5 is just the function total, and that's updated for the Senate changes. And then there are no changes.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, did you say liquor control? I thought we did Fish and Wildlife.
We're going to get to that. They're coming up.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep. So liquor control is here in section 5. And then we're going to scroll all the way down to Fish and Wildlife, which is section 34. And I think it's on page 11 or so. There's no changes throughout the Agency of Human Services or the Agency of Education. But if we go down all the way to section 34, sorry to make people seasick if I'm doing that. But this is Fish and Wildlife, and this is where the dollars are added back for it's about $138,000 added back for the cameras here in Fish and Wildlife. And then the last section.
Stephanie, sorry.
Yep.
You said 130?
I think it's
but isn't it?
Oh no,
50?
this is 45. It's DMV that's 138. Sorry.
We're
gonna get, this is $45,000 for Fish and Wildlife. And then if we scroll down to DMV is the last place, and that is the 138, section 39. That's the last place where body camera money is added, right here on the general fund line.
So we're adding back body cameras in three appropriations for the 3 different departments. And the language that we have developed is in the back.
Yes, we'll get to that around the body cameras. It's one of the last sections that we've added to the language part of the bill. So that is it for the dollar appropriation sections of the bill. And then
what about VSNP?
We're going to come to that. That's not in the B section. It's an added one-time piece. So
all right.
I mean, it's just It's a little
Alice
bit,
will, if we forget VSNP, I mean, Alice will,
yep.
She's not gonna let us forget.
she will,
Nope.
Alice will unseat me as chair.
Yep.
Although there might be some grateful tomcats.
Alice probably couldn't go home.
That's right.
Right.
The next place I wanted to go to is on page 16, section 44. Very quickly, this is where we had the intent around making sure that we maximize the CRF if we can swap out for new relief dollars, federal dollars. And in section B, we had a date of February 28th, and we have changed it to as soon as federal guidance is provided or similar actions are taken by other states, and that's known, or recommendations are made from our consultants, then they have to let us know about, as opposed to the hard date that they were concerned about.
Yeah. So this is, let us know once you know something, as opposed to a date where they were worried that there would be really, it would be too early.
Yep.
So this is,
yeah.
Okay.
Section 44A, just a little further down on page 17. This is just extending the date on legislative CRF to the end of the fiscal year. Section 45, we went through yesterday. This is the redraft of the $3 million emergency section, and it has all the pieces that we walked through yesterday.
okay.
So the $100,000 limit, that the ability to hold, and what happens with, that's with a hold, it has to be, JFC has to meet within 3 days to take it.
Okay, we probably ought to read that because
Yeah.
we kind of asked you to take our discussion and convert it into cogent.
If you can scroll up
Thank-
just a bit, Stephanie, or whoever's scrolling. Okay.
All right, so if it's under 100, we can keep going. They can move forward. They may, the secretary may expend it and just notify us. So I think it's C1, 2 that we really need to look at because that's, I think, capturing our discussion of yesterday, of what we do.
Yes.
It's a bunch of tautologies. If this, then this, then this.
Yeah. So one is if the secretary has to tell us if they have an expenditure that's $100,000 or more. 2 is the setup for any member of JFC can ask for a hold on that, $100,000 or more expenditure proposal. And then if they do have a hold in 3, you meet within JFC meets within 3 days.
Hang on.
Yep, sorry.
I thought the office was the Joint Fiscal Committee.
No,
No, it's the
member.
Oops, sorry.
The office is the Joint Fiscal Office. So a member of Joint Fiscal.
Okay.
And then,
Committee.
but they inform both the Secretary of Administration and the office, and it's the office's responsibility to inform the rest of the committee and the General Assembly.
But I mean, here it says or again.
That was supposed to be taken out.
Oh, my
Where-
apologies. That's
where I
on
mean?
me. Where are you? And I'll fix it right now.
I'm on the last, well, above 3. So the last, second to the last line of 2.
The last line of 2 and the Joint Fiscal Committee.
It says or the office.
No, we want to keep the
It should be the office.
Want to keep
The office.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
just
so
do
it
it.
says the office shall inform other members of the Joint Fiscal Committee. And we want to actually strike and the Joint Fiscal Committee. We want to have and shall inform the General Assembly.
Right, right.
So everything after that and up to shall should go there.
You mean we can't just put Teresa's name in there and say she's going to inform us?
We are going to trust that is going to happen.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Phil, for,
Yeah.
that's why I wanted us to take a look at this
Yep.
because this is the first we've really had a run through since it was rewritten. And I remember that was an issue that got raised yesterday, being clear who was are responsible for notifying.
Mhm.
Okay, so the Secretary of Administration shall direct the request through Joint Fiscal Office within 24 hours. The office then, meaning Teresa, shall inform the members of the Joint Fiscal Committee of the request and also the General Assembly, which is what we're doing now.
Yep.
And then 3, if a member requests it be held, we've got to meet within 3 days and determine whether to approve it. Now, if we approve, they can proceed. If the committee disapproves, they shall not expend the CRF money as proposed, but may submit the proposal for consideration, or may revise and resubmit the proposal. So it's giving them 2 avenues.
Yeah. And then C is if for some reason a member holds, but for joint fiscal does not meet within the 3-day limit, or meets, but then does not take an action up or down, then the proposal can go forward.
Yeah, it's forcing us, if we want to have this oversight, then we've got to be nimble and responsive.
Yep.
Okay.
And then number 4 just makes clear that if there is no hold on a $100,000 item, then it can go forward.
Mhm.
Okay. I think we've put through all the possibles. If this, then we do this, and if that, we do something else. Okay. Any comments or corrections here?
Well, with regard to the
I
first,
like that much better.
with regard to the first 24 hours, I'm assuming there doesn't need to be a time frame put on when they would notify. If you can go back there to where it made the correction. Okay, right there too. I'm assuming there's no requirement they would inform other members in terms of a time frame. Probably doesn't need one. Last sentence in 2.
So
Oh, they do it simultaneously.
Doesn't say that, does it?
So
You're talking about, I believe,
informing the other members.
protocol is to inform the members of the joint fiscal and also send out at the.
So it's only if a member holds an item that's 100,000, if a joint fiscal committee member holds an item, then so the member has to respond within 24 hours to hold. And then joint fiscal has to inform the rest of the committee that there's a hold, because that starts the 3-day clock ticking. And then we also inform the General Assembly.
Okay.
So it's done as a package. It's 2-step. First, notify the members of the joint fiscal and then inform the General Assembly. It's something we do now and with the requests.
Okay.
You're concerned that it might not be done timely to the General Assembly, Alice?
Right. I'm not really concerned, but I'm just thinking that seems like it's left out, but it's all right. Me. You know, it doesn't that time frame.
Well, I guess you should say the office shall
Concurrently
also immediately
shall concurrently inform the General Assembly.
Well, no, I think what we're saying is the office, joint fiscal has 24 hours to get the notice out to us. Right?
No, so we immediately get when the Secretary of Administration informs us that there's a $100,000
Oh, I'm sorry.
item.
I've got to go back to the held. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So this is about the holding. This is a joint fiscal committee member has 24 hours. Once they've been notified that there's a $100,000 plus item, then a member has 24 hours in which to decide whether to hold it. And once they decide to hold it, they're telling us, the Joint Fiscal Office, they're also telling the Secretary, but it's our job as the office to inform the rest of the committee that there's a hold, and that within 3 days of that time frame, Joint Fiscal is going to have to meet.
I think what Alice is saying is, I say, look, I want to hold.
Yeah.
How much time does joint fiscal have to turn that around and let the other members of the committee know and the General Assembly? And I think it's immediately. Once
It
you,
is immediately. It is immediately. We
so
would-
my question is, should the office shall also immediately inform?
we can put that in.
Is that your concern, Alice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it could be days later.
That's in
well,
fact what is happening now, but it doesn't do any
Yeah.
harm to make it clear that once they get it, they're supposed to shoot it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
All right. So that's section 45. There's no change in 46 or 47. Those broadband pieces have been in since S36 came out of the committee.
Mhm.
Section 47A and B, well, section 47, yes, is broadband still. Section 47A and B, we just went through on the state
Mhm.
colleges.
Uh-huh.
No change in section 48 on Everyone Eats, or section 49, which is the legal aid and the judiciary fees.
Yeah, this is all our bill that they.
Yeah,
plunked
section
in.
50, no change. Section 50A is VSNP.
Yay.
Madam Chair,
50A.
So this is a $300,000 appropriation one time to bring into balance the program.
And to allow them to continue to do the work through the end of the fiscal year.
Yes. I mean, that's a given.
Okay. You think that's a given? Okay.
Well, it says it obviously with that 300,000, which means that you have that much to spend by the end of the fiscal year. If you needed 302, you can't, because you'll be out of balance.
Yes.
But I mean, they'll be doing new work through the end of the year.
Yeah, and they will have a new appropriation in
Right.
FY22.
Right.
yeah, and we'll have a second shot at this if they're going to spend more when we do the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Section-
Madam Chair. Madam
fine.
Chair,
Yes.
are we done?
I don't know. I can't see you and I can't see your hand. So I don't know if we're
We have a-
done.
We have a handful of sections just to run through really quickly.
Okay.
No, we're not done, Richie. Karen.
Section 51 is no change. And section 51A was, you agreed that you would keep the language that was added by the House regarding the Beckett facility.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Section 52 is no change. Section 53 is the section you deleted yesterday. This was where you had the $10 million of housing rental assistance.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Just this afternoon, Sorsha sent out to JFC the grant acceptance for the whole $200 million grant.
Okay, so we'll deal with that in our next expedited mini bill.
Yep. Sections 54, 55, 56 are no change. And then sections 57 on page 27 is the body camera language. And section, it's listed as 59, but it should be 58, is the payment of the Global Warming Solutions Act subcommittee folk.
Okay, because we felt they had enough money. It's just authorization to make the payment.
Yeah, and then the effective dates remain the same and should be section 59. Yep.
Okay, now Senator Westman, we're finished.
I'll move HR 138 as amended favorably.
Okay, we have a motion to accept as amended. Senator Starr is muted, but he keeps waving that he wants to second.
That's fine.
Okay. Senator Starr has seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'm going to ask the clerk.
I'm ready.
Yeah, because you've got assistants. Huh, that's not fair. We made poor Richie. He had to copy the bill. He had to, fill in the blanks and everything.
If we're going to get into how hard Richie's life has been, That
I have a folder still sitting here from last year.
Yeah.
I sweated over this record of action.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
We
So,
cut the appropriation to the clerk though. Richie was well paid.
Oh, yeah. I got big bucks.
Strike that from the record, please.
Yeah, you'll get your reward in heaven, as the old saying goes, a bale of hay. So, if the clerk would please call the roll.
Senator Ballant,
Yes.
Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka,
Yes.
Senator Sears,
Yes.
Senator Starr,
Yes.
Senator Westman,
Yes.
and Senator Kitchell,
Yes,
which makes it unanimous 7-0.
7-0, and the chair is the customary reporter of the BAA. Unless people want to break with that tradition.
Kidding.
I think
We'll be
I
right
think we'll let
behind
Senator
you.
Starr do it.
It would be a very short and concise report.
Okay, so Chrissy, I'll get the email from you to confirm the vote and the reporter to send up to the secretary's office.
Yep, I just sent it to you. So if you hit reply all, you'll be good to go.
Oh, good. So it's only 3:15
Oh.
and we have accomplished our work that we had scheduled for today.
We have.
We have. So I'm going to adjourn the committee meeting.